All right, Kent, I'll hand it off to you.
Great, thanks, guys. So I had to change my background so to get into the theme of things here. And I love the theme that's warm me up on these really cold days. What we're going to talk about is an oasis of learning right outside your backyard, your back door, civic action projects and lessons in local government. Let's start with this picture. This is from the last big curriculum dispute we had in Colorado, the Jeffco Colorado history dispute. I like this for a couple of reasons. One, it spells out students taking an active role in their own education. And look at the sign. We have a voice. It's a primary source. You could collect that and put it in the Library of Congress if you want to. So we're going to talk about civic action projects and local issues and primary sources. In a little while, Justelle Grandsaert is going to join us. She's actually teaching class right now. She'll be here in about 4 or 5 minutes. She'll join us and talk about her work with civic action projects. We were also going to be joined by Allison Alter, but unfortunately, Allison came down with the COVID. She's home in bed and trying to get well. But we'll share her email address there. So you can contact her. She's done these civic action projects as well and engaged kids in lots of different ways. And she's had somewhat different experience than Justelle did working with 9th graders. I encourage you to email her and ask her some questions if you like. Our goals for the day: learn how to engage students with civic action projects. Use primary sources to connect kids with local government. This is from about a week, 2 weeks ago at the Douglas County student protest walkout. Think of all the primary sources that were generated here: photos, signs, social media, news media, etc. All these kind of as primary sources, of course. And there's even some more primary sources from the media. Some of the adults weighed in on the student protests. There's two different viewpoints there. Krista Kafer kind of didn't think it was very good. Jay Bernadine was applauding them. There are all kinds of local issues that engage kids. Take a look at this list. I guess if you can find something on this list might be interesting to your students. Narcan schools, open space laws, gun laws, minimum wage, homelessness, voting, 4-day school week, bicycle safety, school start times, school walking and busing. A number of years ago, Greeley changed their distance from going to get on a bus to school from 1 mile to 2 miles. If your first second year had to walk 2 miles to school. Red light cameras, banned books, history curriculum, scooters and e-bikes. All these are local issues that engage kids in all kinds of ways and encourage them to participate in their local government. As you know, there's 4 types of local government. One of them is cities and towns, represented by the Colorado Municipal League. Special districts, which is represented by Special District Association of Colorado. They're the 2 people that fund the Lesson of Local Government program. There's also counties and school districts are also local governments. Don't forget that school districts are a form of government that kids can be engaged with in a variety of different ways and a variety of different issues. All right, in some ways you can do this 2-day local government primary source driven lesson pretty easily. On day 1, select and explore a local issue. Share newspapers and other news sources about the issue from local and other locations. Arrange for a local leader or a community helper to visit or virtually visit your classroom. Use as a scaffold detail solutions, interest group positions. That's your first day of the lesson. It's collecting information, getting some opinions formed. Day 2, primary sources out. Write a letter to the editor or to leaders or to social media. Share good and poor examples of communication types. Provide time to write and for peer feedback. Work on final edits and encourage public sharing. Now, this is an example of a 2-day primary source driven lesson. This could also be 2 weeks. It could be two semesters. It could be 2 lifetimes. The idea is the primary sources are in terms of gathering information, and kids create their own primary sources on the way out as well. I said Justelle's here now.
Hello.
The best part about Zoom is waving. Here's some high school kid that gets published on a national platform, talking about CRT, and adults need to chill out about it. Here's some Girl Scouts that got involved with passing a law in Colorado to ban smoking while they're in the cars. Some kids from city of Thornton that planned a park for the city as part of a contest at the STEM middle school. We need to love those faces. Some second graders in Fort Lupton demanded better bike lanes from their city council. Justelle's here. Justelle's going to talk about civic action projects. Justelle's been doing this has been creating engaged citizens for how many years have you been doing this, Justelle?
20 this year, 23.
Really?
Yeah.
Somebody's getting old. All right, you're on.
Okay. Well, good morning. I'm happy to be here, and I am here at Silver Creek High School in Longmont, Colorado. And I teach CP government and integrated world studies here for obviously 23 years, and I love it. So I'm just going to briefly talk about engaging engaging my students in what's called civic and action projects. So I'll just go over it briefly, and then
Let me stop you for a second. Allison's not going to be with us. She had the COVID, so take as much time as you like.
Okay. So I'll talk through my projects and then tell you how they work. And if you have any questions after, I would love, or during, please jump in anytime. I would love it to be interactive. So please feel free to jump in anytime and interrupt me. That would make me really happy. So I teach government for juniors, and I took a course when I first started teaching about how to engage citizens. And the project was called Civic and Action Project. So we call it CAP. And essentially, I love it, and my government students find that it's one of their favorite units that we do. We link it with our second unit, which is on local government. So students study local government. We look at state, school, regional issues, how our local government runs. During that time, I bring in local leaders as primary sources. So while we're just getting to know what our local government is, I invite like the mayor in, a school board member in, a police officer, city council member. Not everyone comes, but a lot do. And they come in and they talk to my students about what their role is in local government. While that's happening on our big whiteboard, we list issues that are happening as they're talking and as students are researching what issues are facing our local government. Homelessness, right, affordable housing. And so we have on the big whiteboard, we start making a list as these primary source speakers are coming in, and we make a list of issues facing our local government. After that, they get choice. So they'll choose something that they're interested in changing. And that's one thing I think why CAP projects work is they choose something they're interested in, higher education, veterans issues, and they study it. While they're studying it, they research using Gale database, they research on the internet, obviously. But after they've done that research, what really keys them in is they have to do 3 resources that are in our community. So they might email the mayor. They might go talk to our administration if it's something to do with a school issue. Many times they've called our Dr. Haddad, who's our superintendent, and he's called back and they've talked about their issues with them. So they actually have to talk to local leaders. And then they come up with a plan, and that's their final project. So here on the screen, you'll see examples of their final project. So their final project might be speaking in the corner. You see the 2 students speaking at with veterans about increasing funding. Next to them, you have Brooke and Mia, who they took it the farthest. They actually sent a letter to our state legislature saying that higher education should be more affordable. And they were invited to come speak and testify at the state legislature in Denver, which is exciting. Some have done letters to the editor. So you see their titles there, Cody up at the top about saving the planet. So they'll send a letter to our local newspaper, Gabby about the value of art, Planned Parenthood. So you see the variety of issues. I have the two gentlemen, I guess, in the corner with our mayor, our former mayor. They were very much wanted to stand straight there. And they talked about how they wanted to increase skate parks and resources in Longmont, where we're located. So that's how it ends, culminates the projects, and a variety of projects over the years. And some with varying degrees of success in terms of what they actually change. But I would say 99.9% are successful in the students learning about the process of being engaged in their local community. So this was the one I was just going to highlight that the farthest it's gone. And these are the two students who went all the way to the Capitol. So I just wanted to show you how cool is that they got to testify. So the biggest thing about these CAP projects is that they learned that their voices matter. So here they were nervous. They weren't very happy with me at first because we had to go all the way down to Denver and talk to adults. But they get to hear their voice matters. So our next slide let's see. Oh, so it's not easy. And I'll take your questions soon. There are challenges to the CAP projects. Sometimes when they send an email, the leaders won't respond. So they'll either have to find another resource, which can be challenging, or they'll have to circle back with an email or a phone call. And I also feel like sometimes a leader won't respond at all. And I think they learn from the process that there's frustrations in being an active citizen. Our school administration doesn't always, I misspelled that, always provide full support. And I think it's because we're showing sometimes that there's blemishes in our school building or at a district level. So I found different ways to help that, like letting the administration know before that these projects are going on, making sure that the students have open communication and that they're really well researched before they meet with local leaders or administration. Sometimes they struggle to find worthy topics. So I really stress to them that they should find a topic that they're passionate about, which seems easy on the outside, but sometimes students struggle. So we do a lot in the beginning with brainstorming. I have past students come in and talk about what they've done, which helps students to find value. With the CAP project, the focus also is on policy, not service. So you have to stress to the students that it's about what's happening with local policy, since they're learning about local government and not like service. Although I do obviously believe in service. And then the successes are huge, I believe. I found that through the past years, they find relevancy when they have choice on their topics. They learn those life skills, like how to write a professional email, a letter to the editor. And you'd be surprised about the emails, like helping to teach them like to address it and use like formal words instead of the words they use when they text. They learn to ask interview questions, the importance of shaking a local leader's hand when they meet them in person pre-COVID. And the final thing I want you to know is the most important takeaway is that they learn that their voice matters, right? So that they can talk to adults and that adults will listen. So for the past 23 years, we've been cruising with the CAP projects, and I found a lot of value in that. I am happy to take your questions.
Oh, I'll ask a couple, Justelle. How long does this take you to do these things?
Good question. It takes at least a month. We do the first couple lessons. They're 90, I have block classes that are 90 minutes. So you take at least 4 days setting up local government, bringing in local leaders, and then about 2 weeks for the projects to happen. And sometimes the projects will go beyond those 2 weeks when they have, because sometimes the leaders aren't available during our time frame. So some of them, their projects go beyond even the scope of the CAP projects. And so I give them flexibility with that.
What's your classroom look like when they're doing them?
A lot of nervous energy, excitement, frustration all at once. So it's busy, I would say. And so sometimes students will be leaving and going out downstairs to interviews, the administration of the counseling coming back. It's almost like a news, as I would picture, like a newspaper room in terms of like bustling. It's bustling, I would say. And then anytime like we send an email letter to the editor or a local leader comes in, we always clap and try to have success days too.
How do you grade it?
Great question. It's graded on their, not if they succeed, if they were able to affect the change, it's graded on a portfolio. So they're graded on the research that they first the proposal, the research, the evidence of the actions they've completed and their final project. And they don't have to send their final project, like a letter to the editor or a letter to the governor of Colorado. Like that can be their final project. And I can't force them to actually send it. Obviously, we encourage them to do that, but some students aren't comfortable with their names going out there so that they can still get an A or a 10 on the assessment. So their assessment is graded, and I can share that, the portfolio, what it looks like and how it's graded in the rubric too.
We also have questions. I have some more. I'll keep asking questions.
Okay.
What do you do when the kids can't find a topic?
When they can't find the topic, you sit and you talk to them individually. So I start by saying, like, what are you interested in life? Like, and it could be skateboarding, right? Or drama. I mean, it could be prison system. And sometimes I'll just start going off on going through a list in my head. Like, do you think the death penalty should be abolished? What about our local government, about housing? What's relevant to you? So we make a list. So when a students can't find a relevant topic, often a one-on-one conversation with them really helps narrow it down. So I think the combination of bringing local leaders in at the beginning, making a huge whiteboard, listing topics. Often we just say, okay, go look at the board. Does anything up there get your goat or make you irritated? How would you change your education system? If you could, how would you make learning more relevant? So I think the steps before you start your projects are important too, in giving them a huge list of ideas to get them going, a brainstorm.
What's the most common form of product?
Say that again.
What's the most common form of product? What's the most common thing they produce?
Great question. The most common is a letter to the editor, and they get so excited. Our local paper often publishes them, and then we celebrate that. We say, like, you're a published author, you should put that on your resume and you'll get a full ride to Stanford. So letter to the editor, and then they see their name in print and people are reading it. The second one is, I say letters, letter to the editor, letter to the governor, letter to our administration with a policy recommendation. And there have been some more presentations. So presentations to the school board, presentations to our city council. Right now I have 2 students presenting to each department in our building about using diverse language in our topics. So they're going to each department and they've created a presentation. So I would say letters, and then some are actually having formal presentations at the city level.
Have you ever had administration shut down a topic?
Yes, once, only once. The administration felt they wanted to bring back nutrition classes and like food is fun classes here. And the administration felt that it wasn't an actual, like they couldn't actually do that because, and so they went through the reasons why and said that wouldn't be a viable topic. That's the only time.
So what are some of the most controversial issues kids have done?
Great question. This year, one student is advocating that at our school level that we have at least another bathroom for transgender students, and that's caused some controversy. I'm trying to think. One student was advocating for changing regulations around marijuana in the city of Longmont. And so administration was a little bit nervous about that. I think those are the most controversial that we've had. But there's the critical thinking, which is great.
We also have questions.
You can put the questions in the chat. And you could do it in any classroom, I think. It doesn't have to be a government classroom. It could be like a United States history classroom, and it could be done in different ways in elementary and middle and high school. I think it can definitely be altered and developed to fit into a variety of levels, just getting the students active in their own community.
What's the most
There is
number of
one
teachers?
question
Yes, yay.
from Linda Carney. She asked, it sounds like grading is subjective. What do you think about that?
Well, I'll show you the rubric. So they clearly know what they're being graded on. So if they complete every project, right, with go through all of this, all the steps to the CAP project, then they can achieve an A on it. So I think it's more, there is a rubric, they know exactly what they're going to be graded on. So you might say it's effort, but you're actually looking on the fact that they're learning, they have to learning about local government. And so that's my key as a government teacher. It's a great question. And so I have to make sure that they're meeting the standards, right? So it's a standard-based unit. And in the biggest piece, actually beyond the steps in the portfolio, is a reflection. So they actually have an hour to do a reflection at the end where they have to prove what they've learned about local government through the process. So I really believe, like, if they see the rubric and if they follow the steps and then show their analysis of local learning, then that's how I grade them. Great question.
Anybody else? Don't get me started talking about subjective grades. I'll launch onto you for like an hour or so.
Good question.
I would be curious about those reflections. You know, I do reflections in my class too, and I always feel like there's so much learning that's displayed in the reflections.
I totally agree. We do reflections after each unit that they do. And so I feel like so each unit in my world history class and in my government class, at the end of every unit, we have them do a reflection. And I agree with you. I think that's the key sometimes to really understanding what they have learned and the questions that they have. And I think one thing that Ken actually taught me, a student taught with him eons ago, is to show them examples of reflections too. So then they see like the depth of thought that they can do, like it's more than a 1 or 2 sentence. And I'm happy to email Ken or some examples of the reflections too in the CAP projects and the questions that I ask.
I find a reflection very powerful as well. Oftentimes you'll get information about not only about what they've learned, but how the class went, what they learned as learners, and about your own teaching techniques. You can use these. We found the reflections so valuable that we changed them from being a homework grade to an assessment grade. So that's good information about what the kids learned from them.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions?
This might be a question more for Kent, but I've seen you do some of this work with middle school and elementary school students. How could those kind of grade levels get involved?
Well, the trick is pick a good project. I think the planning a park project was a really great one there at the STEM middle school. Let me show that again. So what the teachers did, they arranged to make for the students to make connection with the city council, the city of Thornton, and talk with all kinds of people about how to plan a park. And they talked to, and one of the things they had to do is interview what do old people want in a park, what do young people want in a park, what do parents want in a park, what do kids want in a park. They had to include that in their design features. And the city liked it because then all of a sudden they're making connections with their community and getting ideas about what they'd like to see in their park. The kids have to work together and then plot out, and then they design their own park. I love how this looks, all the stuff down here. You can see down here, benches and the trees and the various other things to do. And then they had to provide a scale for how big the park was going to be.
Awesome.
Plus, they had to learn what the rules were for building a park. How many acres you have to be, what has to be in the park, what can't be in the park, all that sort of stuff.
And I was going to add to that, in the elementary, probably and middle and high school level, they also realize that things aren't as easy as they assume. Like they want to start school later, because here at Silver Creek, we start at 7:45. So a CAP project once was they wanted to push the learning times later for school to start. And then they met with their superintendent and the transportation officials, and they realized how it would affect busing and after school activities. So at the elementary, middle, and high school, I think it's learning too about the process. Like they seek a solution and then they have to like figure out what challenges to get there, which is great. And I also feel like for local leaders, this is just my perspective, that they also see what issues are important to our students, which is extremely valuable, and their perspective on it, because our students are the ones that are in the building, right? They're the ones learning, their perspective is also valued.
Allison had a really interesting experience. Allison did it with ninth grade, which is a bit more of a challenge as well. She had some great experiences with them, and she'd be more than happy to talk about the her civics action projects, which were, because she just starting it, the administration balked at it, and they didn't work as well for her to begin with. When they interact, students and leaders often say the same thing about each other.
Yes. Sorry.
Folks are smart and they really care about our community. It's hard to beat that kind of learning, no matter what's going on. Here's some more primary sources, lessons from the lessons of local government. We have a primary source lesson called Local Government in 35 Objects. You find that on our website. And then there's one that this one's available just in beta form. It's available at the beta form on the link at the bottom of the page. Use local campaign ads to learn about local issues, leadership characteristics, advertising techniques. Community helpers, past and present, compares photos of community helpers from different time periods. Some great pictures of some old firefighters and some great pictures of some old lifeguards. Quote walk, students use quotes to explore why local government matters. I mean, you wrote that lesson, didn't you, Justelle?
I love that one. I love you put quotes around the room and they silently walk and respond to each one. It's so, and you could do that with any government or history, and then they come back and share, but they're walking around the room and you just post. It's really easy, and I feel like very thoughtful responses.
Local government on a parade, and you see all kinds of forms of local government on a parade. And you can see a slideshow that you can show your kids, and they learn about all the different types of local government. Like us on Facebook, please. Questions from the audience. Thanks, Linda.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. We will get Kent's presentation posted as soon as we can on YouTube, as well as his resources from his PowerPoint too. So thanks again, Kent, and we'll see you guys the rest of the day.
Hello, Teacher Librarian Day. There's our email address. Email us.
And you can email me any questions about CAP, or if you want to see the rubric or the reflection questions. I'd love it.
Have a good time on the beach.
Thank you.